The courtroom was colder than I expected. Not cold in temperature, though the air conditioning hummed low and steady, but cold in spirit. A chill that crawled beneath your skin, the kind that clings to your bones and whispers that judgment is near and there is no escape from it. I stepped through the double doors, my shoes clicking against the polished floor, the sound ricocheting across the walls. Dozens of faces turned, some with curiosity, others with suspicion, and a few with faint recognition. Yet the only face I searched for, the one I both dreaded and longed to see, sat high above the rest, the judge. He had not seen me yet. The bailiff's voice boomed, "All rise." We stood, a sea of restless bodies, as the judge entered from his chambers. He wore the black robe like armor, his expression carved from stone, decades of authority weighing on his shoulders. But then, his eyes landed on me. And in that single heartbeat, everything shattered. His jaw tightened. His eyes widened, freezing as though he had seen a ghost long buried. For just a flicker, the gavel slipped in his grip, nearly clattering to the desk. No one else noticed. But I did. And so did he. Why did the sight of me reduce a man who ruled over life and death to silence? Why did his face drain of color the instant our gazes locked? I slid into my seat, every motion deliberate, every step echoing louder than it should. People whispered, their voices rustling like dry leaves. Who is she? Why is the judge staring at her like that? What's happening? I didn't answer them. Not yet. The case was already infamous. The newspapers called it the trial of the decade, a storm of corruption, missing money, and broken lives. The defendant, a businessman with hands in every crooked deal imaginable, sat smugly at the defense table. Across from him, the prosecutor shuffled papers with grim determination. But none of them mattered. Not today. Because this trial was not about them. It was about me. And him. The judge cleared his throat, snapping his mask back into place. His voice came steady, but I heard the tremor beneath. This court is now in session. Still, his eyes flicked to me again and again, as if to confirm I was real. As if he could not believe I had come back at all. The proceedings unfolded with routine motions and formalities, witnesses sworn, objections raised, evidence introduced. But my ears barely registered them. My heartbeat was the only sound I truly heard, pounding like a drum inside my ribs. How long had he believed his secret would stay buried? Did he think time would erase me? Or did he know, deep down, that one day I would return? When my name was called, the atmosphere shifted. Every head turned. The scrape of my chair against the floor thundered through the silence as I rose. Step by step, I walked to the witness stand. The judge's knuckles whitened on his gavel. "Raise your right hand," the bailiff instructed. I did. My voice was calm, steady, almost too steady, as I swore to tell the truth. But whose truth was I about to tell? Mine or his? I sat. The wood of the chair pressed into my back as the prosecutor began his questions. My name, my occupation, my connection to the case. Simple, routine. But beneath it all, I could feel the tension thickening, wrapping itself around the room. The judge was not listening. His gaze drilled into me, as though trying to unravel whether I had come to destroy him. And maybe I had. At one point, I glanced directly at him. Just a flicker of contact. That was all it took. His lips parted, his breathing hitched. He remembered. He remembered everything. The prosecutor asked, "Do you recall the night in question?" I leaned forward, every pair of eyes fastened to me, and nodded. Yes, I remember. But the words carried more weight than anyone else in that courtroom could ever understand. Because the night he thought forgotten, the night we both swore never to speak of, was about to resurface. And when it did, it would not just unravel this case, it would unravel him. The defense attorney's eyes narrowed. He studied me, then glanced at the judge, then back at me. Suspicion sharpened his features. What story did he think he was about to uncover? If only he knew. Minutes stretched. Questions passed. The air thickened, suffocating under the weight of what was unspoken. My answers were careful, deliberate, offering just enough truth to stay credible, but withholding the one secret that could shatter it all. The judge adjusted his glasses, his hand trembling. Almost invisible. Almost. But I saw. He was unraveling. And all I had to do was keep talking. During a pause, silence stretched long and thin, every person in the room leaning closer, waiting. That was the moment I asked myself, should I reveal it now? Should I tear off the mask and let the world see who I really am and who he really is? But no, not yet. The timing had to be perfect. So I bit the words back, feeding the tension instead, fragments, hints, enough to make the judge sweat, enough to make the spectators whisper, enough to make the defense bristle. Finally, the judge's voice cracked across the silence, sharper than he intended. Witness, answer the question directly. It was the first time he had spoken to me directly since I entered. The first fracture in his armor. I turned slowly, deliberately, and locked eyes with him. Yes, Your Honor, I said, my tone heavy with meaning only he could hear. His throat bobbed. He swallowed hard. He knew. And I knew he knew. Why was he so afraid of me? Why did my presence alone threaten to dismantle a man who had sentenced criminals without flinching? The answer was buried in a secret so dark, so dangerous, that to reveal it would shake the courtroom to its foundations. And soon, very soon, I would. The prosecutor pressed on, dragging us back into the rhythm of testimony. But the undercurrent was undeniable. The whisper spread. The tension grew. And still, I waited. Because patience is the sharpest weapon. And when the blade falls, it cuts deepest. By the time I stepped down from the witness stand, the air felt charged, electric, ready to ignite. The jurors fidgeted, unsettled. The attorneys exchanged restless glances. The gallery buzzed with half-formed suspicions. And the judge could not stop staring. It was not just shock. It was not just fear. It was recognition. As I walked back to my seat, my mind repeated the question that had haunted me since I walked into this courtroom. What secret ties us together so deeply that it could topple everything he has built? The answer was coming, but not yet. Not until the perfect moment. I didn't sleep that night. How could I? The judge's face kept replaying in my mind like a broken reel, each frame sharper than the last. His eyes when they first met mine, shocked, almost panicked. His lips parting in recognition. His voice, usually commanding, faltering for just a second. He remembered me. And that was dangerous. I sat at my kitchen table long after midnight, case files spread before me like pieces of a puzzle I was not sure I wanted to solve. They were supposed to be about the defendant, the corruption, the missing millions, the money laundering trail. But the only name echoing in my mind was the one wearing the robe. The judge. Years ago, when I first crossed his path, I never imagined our lives would collide like this again. Back then, he was not a judge. Not yet. He was just a man with ambition so sharp it could cut steel. A man who wanted everything and would stop at nothing to get it. And I was the one who saw too much. The shadows of the past are funny things. They don't vanish when the sun rises. They wait, patient, clinging to your heels until the day you turn around and realize they have never left. That night, the memories clawed at me. I remembered the first time I heard his voice, not in a courtroom, but in a dimly lit back room where deals were struck in whispers. I was not supposed to be there. I was not supposed to hear. But fate doesn't care about supposed TOS. And what I heard that night changed everything. The next morning, I stood in front of the courthouse again, clutching a coffee I didn't want. People streamed inside, their chatter like static. Reporters gathered on the steps, hungry for headlines. They thought this was a case about money laundering, but was not it so much more? Inside, the atmosphere felt tighter. Yesterday's unease had bled into everyone. The jury shifted more in their seats. The attorneys whispered urgently. And the judge, he avoided my eyes, but only just, as though looking at me too long might strip away his disguise. The prosecutor called another witness, a banker. Numbers, signatures, transactions, testimony wrapped in charts and exhibits. The courtroom buzzed with monotony. But beneath it all, I felt his gaze flicker toward me like a nervous tick. And I wondered, did anyone else notice? Did anyone else see the cracks forming in the man who was supposed to embody authority itself? When the recess bell rang, I didn't leave. I stayed in my seat, feeling the hum of the room thin as people filed out. That's when it happened. A shadow loomed over me. His voice, low and urgent, cut into my ear. "We need to talk." It was him. The judge. For a moment, the world froze. Judges don't approach witnesses. Judges don't break silence like that. But here he was, standing close enough for me to smell the faint trace of cologne and fear. I turned slowly, meeting his eyes. "About what?" I asked, though I already knew. His jaw tightened. "Not here. Tonight. Same place as before." Before. The word sliced through me like a blade. He remembered that place. The alley where it all began. The night I overheard him. The night that bound us together in secrecy. I leaned back, forcing calm. "Why would I meet you?" "Because," he said, his voice almost breaking, "if you don't, we were both finished." He left before I could respond, his robe sweeping behind him. Like a shadow trying to outrun a light. I sat frozen, my mind spinning. We were both finished. What did he mean? Did he know what I planned? Or was he afraid I already knew more than I should? And most of all, should I meet him? That night, against every shred of reason, I went. The alley had not changed. The same cracked bricks. The same flickering streetlight buzzing like an anxious insect. Time had not touched it. And there he was. No robe, no gavel. Just a man, older now, but with the same sharpness in his eyes. "You should not have come back," he said. I crossed my arms. And yet, here I am. He glanced around as though the shadows themselves might be listening. "Do you realize what you were doing? Sitting in that courtroom, looking at me like that? Looking at you." I almost laughed. "You were the one who can't stop staring. Afraid the truth might slip out." His hand twitched like he wanted to silence me right there. Instead, he whispered, "If you tell them what you know, you won't just destroy me. You will destroy yourself." The words hung in the air, heavy and suffocating. Destroy myself? What did he mean? I stepped closer, my voice ablaze. You think threats will work after all these years? He shook his head. Not threats. Warnings. And then he said the one thing that made my blood run cold, you don't remember everything. I froze. What was he implying? That the shadows of the past held pieces I would forgotten? That there was more buried in that night than I realized? I opened my mouth, but he raised a hand. Be careful what you dig up. Some secrets don't just hurt, they kill. And with that, he disappeared into the darkness, leaving me trembling beneath the flicker of the street light. I walked home in a daze, my thoughts spiraling. Could he be right? Had I missed something all those years ago? Something bigger than both of us? When I reached my apartment, I pulled out the journal I had not touched in over a decade. The pages were yellowed, but the words still sharp. My handwriting told the story of that night, the deal, the voices, the promise of silence. But as I read, I realized something chilling. There were gaps. Whole sections I could not recall writing. Whole conversations missing. And at the bottom of one page, scrawled in shaky ink, was a line I didn't remember ever writing. He knows my name. If I disappear, it's because of him. I dropped the journal, my hands shaking. What had I stumbled into back then? What had I forgotten or been made to forget? And now, with the trial underway, what truth was threatening to surface? The next morning, I returned to court, my eyes heavy from lack of sleep. As I sat down, I noticed something new. Reporters' cameras pointed more often in my direction. Whispers followed me, louder now. People were starting to wonder, who was I, really? And why did the judge look at me as though I held the key to his undoing? The trial resumed, but the case felt like background noise compared to the storm raging between us. Each time the judge glanced at me, the same unspoken message passed between us. Don't you dare. But was not it already too late? That night, I stared at the ceiling, my heart pounding. His words echoed over and over, you don't remember everything. What had I forgotten? And worse, what would happen when I remembered? The night after our meeting, I could not shake his words, you don't remember everything. They clung to me like cobwebs, whispering doubts into every corner of my mind. Had I really forgotten pieces of that night? Or had I buried them, too afraid to face what I'd seen? Sleep never came. Instead, I lay awake until dawn painted pale stripes across my walls. And as I watched the light creep in, a thought struck me like lightning. If I didn't remember, maybe something else did. I tore through my apartment, searching boxes, drawers, closets. Old notebooks, envelopes stuffed with receipts, dusty tapes I had not touched in years. All of it ended up scattered across my living room floor. For hours, I dug. Just when I was about to give up, my hand brushed against the back of my wardrobe. A small panel shifted beneath my fingers. Behind it, tucked away in a dust-coated shoebox, I found it. A recorder. The same battered tape recorder I carried everywhere in my younger years. Back when writing things down was not enough. I wanted voices, proof, the raw truth preserved. I stared at it, my pulse thundering. Could it be? The plastic casing was yellowed with time. My hand shook so hard I nearly dropped the batteries as I fumbled them in. When the device finally powered on, the tiny screen blinked weakly to life. There were still files on it. I scrolled hard in my throat until I found the date. That night, the night of the deal, the night I overheard him. For a long moment, I could not press play. What if listening shattered everything? What if it proved I was not just a witness, but something far worse? Finally, with trembling fingers, I pressed the button. Static. Then voices. At first, just muffled chatter. Men laughing, glasses clinking. But then, clearer. That voice. His voice. Younger, sharper, dripping with arrogance. No one will ever trace it back. The accounts are buried 6 layers deep. By the time anyone finds them, we will be untouchable. Another voice chimed in, lower, colder. And what about the others? Loose ends? A pause. Then his reply, leave them to me. I know how to silence anyone who gets too close. My stomach nodded. Then, in the background, another sound. My own voice. Barely a whisper, but there. Who's there? He snapped suddenly on the tape. Shuffling. A door creaking. My breath caught. And then, static. The recording cut off abruptly. I dropped the recorder like it had burned me. So it was true. I had been there. I had heard too much. But why had not I remembered the confrontation? Why had not I written it in my journal? And what exactly did he mean by silence anyone? I pressed play again, desperate, rewinding and replaying. After several tries, I noticed something I had not the first time. Right before the tape cut out, there was another voice. A whisper, almost drowned by static. Run. My breath caught. Who had whispered that? To me? To him? I knew I could not keep this to myself. But I also knew one wrong move could destroy me. If the judge discovered I still had this tape, what would he do? And yet, was not this the proof I needed? The hidden record that could unravel everything? The next day in court, I carried the recorder in my bag, its weight like a stone. The proceedings blurred together. Testimonies, cross-examinations, wire transfers projected onto screens, all of it washed over me. My focus was on him. The judge. He looked composed again, almost smug, as the last night's meeting had not happened. But every so often, his gaze darted toward me, sharp and probing. Could he sense it? That I had something now? During the lunch recess, I slipped away, clutching my bag tightly. Not to the cafeteria, but to the records office in the courthouse basement. Few people came down here. Dust-coated shelves stacked with forgotten files. In a shadowed corner, I pulled out the recorder. Headphones in, I replayed the tape, scribbling notes furiously. Each word, each pause. The arrogance in his tone, the menace in his promise. But as I wrote, a thought gnawed at me. Why did the recording end so suddenly? And who had whispered run? Suddenly, a sound jolted me. Footsteps. I yanked the headphones off, shoving the recorder into my bag. The steps grew closer, echoing down the narrow hall. Looking for something? A voice drawled. I froze. It was not the judge. It was one of the defense attorneys, a man with too slick hair and a smile that never reached his eyes. My pulse spiked. Just reviewing records, I said quickly. He tilted his head, gaze too sharp, too knowing. Funny place to do it. Most people prefer daylight. I forced a smile. I liked the quiet. He studied me for a beat too long before finally, shrugging, sit yourself. Just don't get lost down here. Some files have a way of disappearing. His footsteps receded, but my heart didn't slow. Had he suspected something? Or was it coincidence? Either way, one thing was clear: I was not safe down here or anywhere. That night, I locked my doors twice. The recorder stayed hidden beneath my pillow, its presence both comfort and curse. I couldn't help but wonder, should I go public with it? Hand it to the prosecution? But then I remembered his words, you don't remember everything. What if there was more? What if the tape was not the whole truth? And worst of all, what if exposing it painted a target on my back? The following morning, I returned to court, my mind a battlefield. The prosecution brought more witnesses, but the jury looked restless. Numbers and codes were not enough. They needed something stronger, something human, and I had it. The hidden record. But as I sat there, the judge's gaze locked with mine. His eyes steady, challenging, almost staring me to try. A chill ran through me, because in that moment, I realized if I revealed the tape, I would not just expose him. I would expose myself too. My presence that night, my silence all these years. And was not that exactly what he wanted me to remember? That evening, I opened my journal again, flipping through the yellowed pages. Notes, sketches, half-finished entries. Then, tucked between 2 pages, I found something I had not seen before. A folded slip of paper. My hands trembled as I unfolded it. The ink was faded, but the words were clear. If you were reading this, it means you forgot. Look for the second tape. I gasped, nearly dropping it. A second tape? My mind reeled. Could it be true? Was there more? Another recording hidden somewhere, with the parts ID lost? And if so, what did it contain? That night, as the city outside my window hummed with life, I sat in silence, the note trembling in my hands. One thing was certain, the shadows of the past had not finished with me yet. And if I found the second tape, it would not just be his secrets that came to light. It would be mine too. The courtroom was silent. The kind of silence that isn't absence, but pressure, thick, heavy, so deep you can hear your own blood rushing in your ears. I held the tape recorder in my hand. The same recorder that had split the trial wide open just hours earlier. The first tape, the one no one expected, had already shifted everything. But as my thumb brushed the ridged metal grooves of the device, another realization struck like a blade between my ribs. There was more. A second tape. Not a copy, not an echo. A secret nested inside another secret. And no one knew about it. Not the jury, not the attorneys, not even the judge, though he had stared at me after the first tape ended as if my very existence had rewritten the pages of his life. Why had not I told anyone? Because even I was not sure what was on it. And something in my bones whispered that whatever waited on that second tape, it was not meant for the public. Maybe it was not even meant for me. The judge shifted in his chair, his robe whispering against the polished wood. He had not taken his eyes off me since the recording ended. His stare was not judicial authority, it was something stranger. Recognition. As though my face was an echo of someone he once knew, or once feared. And the thought crept up my spine like ice. Did he already know about the second tape? If so, that meant he was not just a figure at the bench. He was tangled in the same shadows I had spent years trying to escape. The second tape had not simply landed in my hands. It had been hidden, buried inside an envelope wedged into the lining of a desk drawer that was not mine. A desk in a house I should never have entered. But I had. Because when you spend your life chasing truth, trespassing becomes second nature. The envelope had one word scrawled in faded black ink: later. Later for who? For me? For the judge, for the world, the handwriting was unfamiliar, yet I prickled my skin with déjà vu. The defense attorney was still fumbling with papers, sweat streaking his temple. He had not recovered from the first tape, the way it had detonated his carefully rehearsed arguments. If I revealed the second tape now, I knew what would happen. Chaos. But chaos had always been my compass. When I finally slid the tape into the recorder that night, alone in my apartment, I braced for anything. What I heard was worse. The same voice from the first tape. Low, cold, calculated. But this time it was not issuing orders. It was confessing. Not directly, never directly. It was framed as a story, a tale of a deal struck in whispers, the kind of deal that never reached paper, never left fingerprints. But in the pauses, in the cracks, names slipped out. Dates. Places. Names I knew. Dates that aligned with nights burned into my memory. And one place that hollowed me out completely, the judge's summer house. Midway through the tape, the tone shifted. Softer. Almost tender. And then, my name. Not once. Not in passing. But directly. Intimately. You will find this one day, the voice said. And when you do, you will understand who you really are. The words clamped around my chest like a vice. Understand who I really am? What did that mean? That my childhood, my parents, my identity, everything I believed was built on lies? And worse, if the voice knew I would find it one day, then this was not just evidence. It was a message. A message left for me. The next morning, the second tape felt like a live grenade in my pocket. Should I reveal it? Or would that be the same as lighting a match in a room full of gasoline? The prosecutor paced the courtroom floor, his shoes ticking like a metronome of nerves. The jury leaned forward, restless for resolution. The gallery buzzed with half-whispered rumors. And the judge, always the judge, watched me. His eyes didn't blink, didn't flinch, almost as if he was daring me. I could not hear the testimony at the stand. My mind circled the same questions again and again, sharp as razors. Who recorded the tapes? Why did they know my name? Why was the judge's house mentioned? And most dangerous of all, why did the voice sound familiar? It was not a stranger's voice. Not entirely. There were inflections, hesitations, the faint rasp of a lifetime smoker. And if I listened just one more time, I knew I would recognize it. But recognition has a price. That evening, as I reached my car, a slip of paper fluttered beneath the windshield wiper. No signature, no address. Just one line: do not play the second tape in public, or you will not live long enough to regret it. My hand shook. Someone knew. Someone was watching me closer than I had ever realized. Was it a juror? A face in the gallery? Or someone far closer, someone who smiled by day and hunted by night? The next morning, I tried to act ordinary. Coffee, a quiet walk to court, sitting in the gallery like I was not carrying a storm inside me. But every glance at the judge told me the truth. The tape was not just evidence. It was leverage. Leverage strong enough to pull him off his bench and into the mud. But only if I dared press play. Midway through testimony, the prosecutor slipped. He contradicted himself. The defense attorney leapt like a shark at blood. The room erupted, voices clashing, the jury visibly shaken. The judge slammed his gavel, with cracking like thunder. Enough. But in that crack, that eruption, I saw it, my chance. If I revealed the second tape now, there would be no going back. My hand curled around the recorder, my thumb grazing the play button. What would happen if I pressed it? Would the jury gasp? Would the attorneys collapse? Would the judge finally shed his mask? Or would I be silenced before the first word echoed across the chamber? My heart hammered. My throat tightened. Because I finally understood the truth was not just about the case anymore. It was about me, who I really was, and whether the world was ready to hear it. I drew a shaky breath, the weight of decision crushing me from all sides. My thumb hovered, trembling, over the button. The second tape was not just a recording anymore. It was a fuse. And once lit, nothing would ever be the same. The courtroom had always felt cold, but that morning, it felt like a tomb. Heavy, silent, expectant. The second tape still burned in my pocket like a live ember. Nobody else knew it existed. Nobody except, perhaps, him. The judge. His eyes tracked me across the room as though he already knew what I carried. As though the secrets pressed into my palm were not mine to keep at all. And here's what unsettled me most. When he looked at me, it was not with suspicion. It was with recognition. Recognition so sharp, so undeniable, that my heart stumbled in my chest. What did he recognize? My face? My voice? Or something deeper, something I had not yet discovered about myself? That morning's session moved like molasses. Witnesses droned on, lawyers sparred over technicalities, and the jury sagged with exhaustion. But then, the judge slipped. Just once. When the prosecutor fumbled his notes and referred to me, supposedly just another figure in the gallery, the judge didn't correct him with the observer or the witness. No. He said my name, out loud, as though it belonged there, as though he had said it 100 times before. But here's the thing, I had never told the court my name. The blood in my veins iced over. How did he know? That night, after the courtroom emptied, I lingered in the hallway. The marble floors echoed with retreating footsteps until it was just me, the shadows, and the faint hum of exit lights. And then he appeared, not in his robe, but in a dark suit. No gavel, no jury, no theater of law, just the man behind the bench, stripped of his costume but not of his power. He didn't look surprised to see me waiting. Walk with me, he said. Not a request, a command. My instincts screamed no, but my cursed curiosity, sharper than fear, whispered yes. We walked through back corridors, down a stairwell that smelled of damp stone, until we stepped into a parking garage lit by flickering fluorescent bulbs. No one else was there. Perfect. He didn't begin with explanations. He began with a question. Have you listened to it? I froze. The second tape. He knew. I opened my mouth to deny it, but he shook his head, the faintest smile twisting his lips. Don't waste both our time. You have heard it. That's why you were here. I swallowed hard. Why does it mention your house? For the first time, the mask slipped. His smile faltered, his jaw tightened, veins rising at his temples. That, he said slowly, is not the question you should be asking. Then what is? Why you are on it. He leaned against a concrete pillar, the weight of years bending his shoulders. He didn't look like a judge anymore. He looked like a man buckling beneath secrets too heavy to carry. You are not supposed to be here, he muttered. Not in this city. Not in this courtroom. Not in my life, again. Again. The word detonated inside me. Again? Had we crossed paths before? Had he known me as a child? And if so, why could not I remember? He gave me fragments, shards of a truth too jagged to hold. There had been a deal, a conspiracy reaching decades deep. The tapes were part of it, insurance left behind by a man who trusted no one. That man had ties to the judge, ties buried so deep that unearthing them would collapse more than his career. It would collapse the entire framework of power in the city. But the real revelation was not about politics. It was about blood. You remind me of her, he said quietly. The way you stand. The way you fight when you don't even know what you were fighting for. You have her eyes. Whose? My voice cracked. He didn't answer. Not directly. But he didn't need to. Because in that moment, a memory clawed its way from the shadows. A woman's voice. A lullaby half whispered. A face. Blurred by time. My mother. And standing before me in the dim garage was the man who had known her better than I ever had. Why didn't you tell me? I demanded, my voice trembling with rage and disbelief. Why let me grow up blind, in the dark, not knowing who I was? His expression hardened, shudders slamming across his features. Because knowing would have killed you. He stepped closer, lowering his voice until it was barely more than a breath. There are people who would silence you for far less than what you know now, if they suspected what you truly are. He let the words rot in the air, unfinished. More terrifying in silence than in sound. He turned to leave, then paused. His hand gripped the concrete pillar, knuckles white. You have a choice, he said without facing me. Play the second tape, and you will burn us all. Hide it, and maybe, just maybe, you will survive long enough to learn the rest. The rest. What truth could possibly be worse or bigger than this? But he didn't stay to answer. His footsteps echoed away, leaving me alone in the garage, drowning in questions. That night, I returned home shaken, my mind a storm of broken truths. But the storm had only begun, because waiting on my doorstep was a box. Plain cardboard. No address. No return label. Inside, a stack of files. Court records, photographs, letters, and on top, a single note in handwriting I recognized instantly, the same faded scrawl that had marked the envelope hiding the second tape. You are not ready yet, but you will be. Start with the letters. My pulse roared, because the first letter was not addressed to me. It was addressed to the judge. From my mother. Why had she written to him? Why had she trusted him? And most terrifying, why had he kept those letters hidden until now? The second tape was only the beginning. The letters were the map. And if I followed them, I knew exactly where they would lead, deeper into a past I had been running from, toward a truth sharp enough to break me. The judge's secret was not just about corruption. It was about family, about bloodlines buried beneath lies, about a connection I had never imagined but could no longer deny. And now, with the letters in my hands, the choice loomed clear: keep hiding in the courtroom's shadows, or dig until I unearthed the truth, no matter who it destroyed. The box sat on my kitchen table like a living thing, humming with danger. Every instinct told me to push it away, to lock it in a closet, to never peel back its layers. But curiosity is a disease, and I was already infected. My hands trembled as I lifted the first letter. The paper was yellowed, edges soft with age, but the ink, her ink, was sharp and deliberate. My mother's handwriting. The woman I barely remembered. The woman whose absence had shaped me more than her presence ever could. Dear Samuel, it began. Samuel. The judge. My stomach lurched. If you were reading this, it means we've failed. But if there is still time, you must protect her. She cannot know who she truly is until the moment is right. If she learns too soon, they will find her, and they will kill her, just as they tried to kill me. I dropped the page like it burned. Protect her. She met me. But protect me from what? The next one was worse. I never wanted to leave her, but the choice was stolen. They promised safety, and I believed them. Foolish. The man who smiles in the photographs, the one who holds her hand and calls her daughter, is not her father. He is a mask. A cover. Samuel, you must never tell her who her real father is, not until she is ready. Because her bloodline will ruin everything. My breath caught. The room spun. Not my father. Not my family. My entire life. A mask? The ground I thought I stood on was nothing more than a stage floor, ready to collapse beneath me. I could not stop now. My eyes devoured the third letter even as bile rose in my throat. Do you remember the night by the cliffs? The deal they struck in whispers? They told me it was for her future, but I saw through them. They feared her. Feared what she could uncover if she lived long enough to question. That's why they erased the records. That's why they buried the tapes. And that's why, Samuel, I'm trusting you with the unthinkable. If the time comes and she discovers too much, you must guide her. Even if she hates you for it. Guide me, even if I hated him. The judge's face returned to my mind, the way his voice had cracked when he said, "You remind me of her." At the bottom of the box, under the letters and files, was a photograph. A woman with my eyes, standing beside two men. One was Samuel, the judge, younger, his hair darker, but the weight in his eyes the same. The other man I didn't recognize. But he looked like me. No, he looked like me and Daniel. Daniel, the name whispered on the second tape. Daniel, the man tied to this whole conspiracy. Could he be? My hand shook so violently I almost tore the photograph in half. Before I could spiral further, 3 sharp knocks rattled my front door. I froze. No one visited this late. No one should have known I was home. I tucked the letters back into the box, slid it under the table, and forced my legs to move. When I opened the door, no one was there. Just a single envelope on the mat. My name scrawled in the same faded handwriting. Inside was a single sentence: "Stop digging, or you will end up like her." Her. My mother. Dead. Sleep was impossible. My thoughts clawed at each other in the dark. Who was Daniel to me? Why had Samuel kept this buried? And who was leaving these letters now? By dawn, I had made my decision. I was not going to stop digging. If my mother had been silenced, then her voice lived on in me. So I went back to the courthouse. Not for the trial. Not for the jury or the lawyers. For Samuel. I found him in his chambers, alone, staring at a wall lined with books he probably had not touched in years. He didn't look surprised to see me. "You read them," he said flatly. "Yes. And now you know too. Much. Too much?" My voice cracked with fury. "I don't even know who I am." His jaw clenched, then loosened. For a moment, I thought he might finally tell me everything. But instead, he whispered, "You were never supposed to sit in that gallery." You were never supposed to hear the first tape. They will come for you now. They already know. Who's they? I demanded. He closed his eyes. The ones who pushed her off the cliff. My blood ran cold. The same cliff from my mother's ladder. The same cliff I had dreamed of without knowing why. Tell me, I begged. Tell me the truth. He looked at me, and for once, the mask was gone. Your father, he said, voice trembling, was not a good man. But he was not evil either. He was caught in something bigger than all of us. Daniel was his partner. And when you were born, you became their leverage. Before I could process his words, he slid open a drawer and pulled out a small cassette tape. The third tape. I swore I would never give you this, he said. But if you have come this far, then you are ready. Just know, once you play it, there is no going back. He pressed it into my palm. His hand lingered, shaking. Don't play it here, he whispered. They were listening. That night, alone in my car on a deserted road, I slid the tape into an old player I would dug out of storage. Static. Then a voice. Not Samuel's. Not my mother's. A man's voice. Low. Steady. Familiar. If you were hearing this, it means they have failed to keep her hidden. My daughter, listen carefully. The blood in your veins is the key they have been trying to bury. You will be hunted, you will be betrayed, but you must never stop. Because the truth isn't just about who you are. It's about what you carry. And if you survive long enough to find the others, then you will understand this was never just about family. It was about power. And you are the last one left who can bring it all crashing down. The tape clicked off. I sat in silence, the weight of the words pressing the air. From my lungs, the last one left. Me. The judge's warning, my mother's letters, the voice on the tape, they were not endings. They were beginnings. The real trial was not the one in court. It was the one waiting for me in the shadows. And now I had a decision to make. Disappear, let their secrets rot in silence. Or keep digging, even if it meant following the same path that killed my mother. I looked at the box of letters, at the photo, at the tape recorder still warm in my lap. My choice was clear. I whispered into the night, to my mother, to the judge, to the man on the tape, whoever he truly was. I am not done. And somewhere in the dark, I swore I heard a voice answer back. You were never meant to be.